Hello, everyone. I'm Vahid, Principal for Engineering at Elsewhere. I've been a software engineer since 2005. I'm passionate about process, standards, and best practices. As a Principal for Engineering, my job is to retain and grow our team of engineers and help define the company's tech strategy. Today's talk is called From Code to Command, Navigating the Management Ladder in Tech. We will cover what's like to enter the leadership role, high-level overview of types of responsibilities, and of course, the skills we may need along the way. So becoming a technical leader may not be on your mind, especially when you're still in the junior level in your career. But at some point, the opportunity will come and knock on your door out of nowhere, and you will find yourself not fully prepared. Many engineers avoid leadership opportunities in their career. This lack of interest is partly because of many assumptions we engineers have about leadership. Let's look at some of these assumptions. First one is preference for technical work. Shifting to leadership can reduce the amount of time you spend hands-on, which can be a major downside for many of you. The other one is the different skill sets. Leadership role demand a different set of skills that can push you out of your comfort zone. Shift in success metrics is another one. In leadership, the success criteria shifts from personal technical achievements to team performance and development. And of course, risk of losing technical edge. We all know in tech world, change happens so rapidly. Engineers in leadership might find it challenging to stay updated with the latest technology and coding practices because they're not really hands-on. But these are there are arguments and compromises for each of these. Um, so let's see what we can get in return. Wider impact. As a leader, you can influence not just individual projects, but entire teams and processes. This can be incredibly satisfying for those who want to shape the bigger picture. You get diverse skill development. Management roles provide an opportunity to develop a wider range of skills beyond just technical ones. Skills like leadership, strategic planning, and team building are so valuable and satisfying to master. They also help you a lot further in your career. We also have team success. Instead of focusing solely on personal achievements, leadership lets you lead a whole team to success. This shift can be rewarding and in a different way as it involves mentoring others and seeing them grow and successful. You also get broader technical knowledge. While it's true that managers might not code as much, they still have to keep their technical knowledge sharp, but this time across much wider spectrum. When you start your leadership career, things won't change overnight. You still will spend the majority of your time coding. However, this time you slowly start to take further responsibilities. I roughly categorize these new responsibilities in three groups. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, depending on your organization. These are team growth, team retention, and the third one is what I call orchestration. Um, Team growth, as you might expect, is around hiring. For me, team growth is one of the most rewarding aspects of leadership. The people you bring into your team directly impact the day-to-day atmosphere of your work experience at work. This allows you to shape your team with people who not only have the right skill set, but fit well with the rest of the team and share the same values. At the beginning of your role in this area, you remain pretty technical. Senior colleagues may drag you in interviews to assess a candidate's technical skills. You get to learn how to interview people and eventually get good at it. As you gain experience, your involvement in hiring gets much wider. You may find yourself interviewing candidates specializing in a different tech stack, which of course will be an opportunity for you to expand your technical knowledge. As you're going up the ladder, up the leadership ladder, your interaction with internal and external recruiters will increase. Your involvement is not limited to engineers anymore. You may interview for non-technicals. It also extends to finding, assessing, and collaborating with outsourcing partners. Potentially, you may find yourself negotiating with international providers. Team retention is another one. Imagine you've put your dream team together. Now, as a leader, you are responsible for retaining them. In the tech industry, particularly in London, job movement is so frequent. It's crucial to ensure your team members are content and motivated. Otherwise, they're just going to leave within a year. Understanding their daily mood and emotions is critical, as your job is maintaining a positive and productive work environment. Creating an environment that supports constant learning is very important. Track and support your team's learning goals and celebrate with them in their achievements. Work closely with HR to define and update technical leadership career path. You aim to provide your team with a clear roadmap of their professional journey. Beyond career progression and learning opportunities, several other factors contribute to job satisfaction. One essential aspect is conducting regular one-to-ones. These sessions let you to build a relationship with your team members, listen to what they have to say, and gauge their happiness. And finally, orchestration. Orchestration is about coordinating various tasks, people, and resources. It's about ensuring everyone works effectively and towards the same goal. People are correctly allocated and issues are swiftly addressed to maintain the smooth operation. In the initial stage of your leadership journey, orchestration tends to be more tactical. You will be deeply involved in managing tasks in much finer details of the project. This might include allocating specific tasks, resolving immediate technical challenges, or closely tracking project progress. You will start to see a work stream. A work stream is a cluster of tasks and activities to be completed by a team of assembled work groups. In the picture below, you can see that as an engineer, your visibility into work stream is initially limited. Often it starts with requirement coming via a product manager or a business analyst, and the work ends with the code being merged and shipped. Leadership expands this perspective for you, letting you to see the entire end-to-end process. So the illustration looks a bit funny here. It doesn't look on mine, so apologies for that. So what it looks like is a chain of different roles, as you see, client, stakeholder, PMs, design, devs, and they're all connected together, which chain a much longer work stream. As you gain experience in your approach, gets more strategic, you will shift focus from day-to-day task management to wider goals and long-term planning. That's when you start to see the value stream end-to-end. Roles and responsibilities that were hidden from you before suddenly become visible. Merging your code, even deploying, doesn't mean the end anymore. Your effort will focus on highlighting the actual value of work stream. It's not just about reducing workload. It now involves checking process of the entire organization, identifying bottlenecks, and find the right approach to address them. To manage this value stream effectively, you will need end-to-end visibility and control over the interconnected streams across the company. This is where sophisticated problem solving comes into play, including breaking down the operational silos and connecting various process and teams together, facilitating cross-team collaboration. and, and more. So we roughly discussed the nature of tasks and responsibilities at the high level. While your engineering background is a significant asset, it's just not enough to make you a successful leader. You will need to develop an additional set of skills, which some of them are people skills and some of them are personal. Communication obviously is the most important one. In leadership, more than ever, you will deal with people. Even having your technical skills as the foundation of your leadership won't do much if you're unable to communicate it to non-technical people. When you're just an engineer, communication is not backbone of your job. You mostly spend your time in isolation, deep working and coding. In contrast, other roles like product managers and designers have to negotiate, they have to report, and they have to manage stakeholders almost from day one of their career. In comparison, it's much harder for us engineers when it comes to preparing to adopt leadership roles. In addition, when you're an individual contributor, your engineering skills is so important that it can make up for lack of communication skills. People will listen to you regardless because you're expert in your field when it comes to coding. When you enter leadership, the expectations are much higher. When it comes to leadership, things are different. To illustrate the importance of communication, consider this. As an engineer, especially at the junior level, your primary mode of non-technical communication is upwards, essentially communicating with your manager. In leadership, you negotiate through 4 dimensions of communication. I can see that the illustration is not showing well here, but the picture on the right is a person with a laptop and 5 arrows in different directions. So you have to communicate with your superior upwards. You have to communicate down to people in your team. You have to communicate sideways, collaborating with peer in other departments. And you have to communicate out, engage with third-party organizations. Another skill that will save us as leaders is managing your time and priorities. As I said before, when you're an engineer, your day is structured around deep working with minimal meetings and email checkings. But in leadership, you will juggle many tasks and switch contexts frequently. This can't be done without effective time management. Amount of tasks you're responsible for is huge. If you just keep juggling and firefighting, you will never do any meaningful work. That's when managing your time becomes important. You have to manage your availability yourself. Otherwise, everyone will take it away from you. There are many tools to help you prioritize your task. The Eisenhower matrix is my favorite. I find it really useful in prioritizing tasks. It also helps you to identify what needs to be delegated. You do the important and urgent tasks first. You delegate less important but urgent tasks to other people. And you make time for things that are important but not urgent. And finally, if something is not important and not urgent, you simply drop it to make time for more important work. As your coding goes away, showcasing what you're working on may become challenging. You keep asking yourself, what have I actually done this week in leadership roles? You're so used to code as a solid result of your work and accomplishment that it takes time to actually recognize and identify other form of results when you're a leader. Making your success visible is crucial in a role that focuses not just execution, but also a strategy and team development. Ensuring your accomplishments are seen and recognized is critical for leadership. There are some ways to enhance your visibility. Regular updates. Keep stakeholders informed of the progress. Knowledge sharing. Engage in and contribute to discussions. offer insight based on your expertise, and company-wide presentations. Use these platforms to highlight the achievement and a strategic direction. Finally, a crucial aspect of development your leadership skills is to observe and learn from your managers. Remember, both good and bad managers offer valuable lessons. Obviously, learning from effective managers. Pay close attention to what makes managers amazing in your eyes. What are their qualities that motivates you? I've gained significant insights from managers whom I've admired and respected. Interestingly, poor managers can be as instructive. You can learn a great deal by identifying and avoiding things you don't like about them. Observing their management style can help you understand what not to do and how not to behave as a leader. And finally, keep learning. There is a wealth of resources available online about technical leadership and management. One book I highly recommend is called The Manager's Path, a guide for tech leaders navigating growth and change. It offers loads of useful information. In summary, your leadership growth is not just about what you do, but also about what you observe and learn from others. Embrace every opportunity to learn from managers around you, as they can unknowingly provide lessons. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, thank you so much for that. Lots of little nuggets of information, which is amazing. I actually really like the fact that you commented about you can learn so much from ineffective managers, because after 10 years in tech, there's one for me that particularly stands out, and I won't mention any names, but they were really like, they would just do what they wanted. And it was actually my tech lead. And I always remember thinking, I am never going to do that. Like, I am never going to be that type of tech lead, because as the person below them, it felt really rubbish. So I think for me, it was such a learning curve. So I really like the fact that you made a point about that, because it's so true. I also want to touch on, you said a lot about like effective communication and how it can look. And communication for me is quite a hard one, because I don't think it's necessarily something that you can just be taught. However, if someone is watching this and they're like, I know I want to get better, how could someone go about doing that?
To be honest, when I start, as I said in the presentation, when you're an engineer, you get away with a lot of things.
Yes.
Because your skills are power, and that's enough. People don't care about other things. When you start leadership, you realize how strategic communication is important, how you're perceived is important. And these are the things that I realized people from other departments like design or product, they're just so good at, because they grow with this. It's built into the DNA of their work. So one of the things that I recommend is to watch and learn from other leaders in other departments, specifically, like especially head of design, head of products.
Yeah.
I think these people are the best role models into how to communicate, how to be perceived, what to say and what not to say, how much detail to provide, how keep some information from the audience. And you always see that technical managers are a few steps behind, because they have to learn everything from scratch.
I think effective, I'm also really glad that you put it at the top of your list, because I think it's one of the most important things. And it's actually why I often recommend people to start coaching at something like Codebar, because even if you're a junior developer, you can start practicing those skills from the get-go, and it's not even just about going, I need to learn how to explain this technical concept. It's also about explaining maybe that technical concept in different ways. It's about when you're at Codebar, you're with someone for 2 hours, learning how understanding how they work and go, oh, okay, how am I going to explain this in a way that this person understands? Because, once you, as you said, like you go through your career and you get to, tech lead, senior level, you have to talk differently to different people in the company.
Exactly.
How
Yes.
you talk to the engineers, you're going to talk to them in a more technical way than you would say the designer. So actually learning those communication skills and what to communicate and how to communicate is so important. So I'm glad that was like the top of your list, because I think it is one of the most important.
Yes.
And you also mentioned time management. And by the way, I know I'm asking now questions, but if anyone has any questions, please do pop them in the chat. I've just seen one come through. Oh, yeah, there's another one. So yeah, I'll quickly finish this one. You mentioned time management. And I know often, again, as you get into those more senior levels, your time can be quite consumed with meetings, which doesn't actually allow much time for work. And the meetings are work, but actually you're also expected to do the work. How would you go about having that conversation with someone to say, look, I'm having too many meetings, so I can't actually do the practical work that's needed? Like, how would you go about that conversation?
Yeah, there is this thing about certain leadership roles that you see them during the working hours. They're just attending meetings and firefighting and things like that. And then outside of the working hours, they just open their laptop and say, okay, now let's just do work. So if you're doing two types of work, the work and the day work, that means you're wrong. You're doing it wrong. So one strategy that I learned is to protect my calendar very dearly. So you have to block your time upfront, and you have to see the tasks that you're supposed to do, especially the ones that are long-term tasks. They're not immediate, but you have to do it over time, like preparing for this talk, for instance. So you have to block time for it in your calendar upfront and put it as a focus time, no meeting accepted. And people eventually will learn to book things around it and work around you. But if you don't do that, then people define your calendar and people will define your schedules rather than yourself.
It's so true, because actually one thing I've started doing is, I was a developer for many years and now I work at Codebar full time. And what I realized is I wasn't really setting aside much time to learn. And I was like firefighting a lot and having to be really reactive. And so what I actually do now is every Friday morning, 10 to 11, I have an event in my calendar called Learning Hour. And what it also means is, if we were to have if you wanted to have a chat with me, the typical thing is I'd send you my Calendly link. You would then book in a time. But that time will never be able to book in, because it is an event in my calendar that says, I am not available during this time. I don't have to explain it to anyone. It's just, I am not available. And and it also forces me to learn, because again, I found that I just wasn't spending much time learning. So actually by forcing that hour, I would go, okay, what am I going to learn in this time? Or, I can often get distracted. So rather than finding an article and say, oh, read that now, I save it and then go, I'll save that for Friday. So let's go to other people's questions, because I think those are way more important than me keeping talking. So someone has asked, do you have any tips for negotiating? Are there things that we need to utilize to influence and negotiate in the workspace?
Negotiating is very, very tricky. So it depends who you negotiate with. So I come from consultancy background. So there is the art of not saying no to the client and always saying yes. But how do you say it? How do you say no without saying no, basically? And then there is negotiating with your colleagues on a certain technical decision, or with your tech lead. So different audience, different way of negotiation. So I was in a talk somewhere, and it was talking about knowing people currencies. So you have to learn what some person values and cares about, and then you have to highlight those. Is a give and take. So you highlight something to convince him to other things, and then Also, being able to back up your claim or arguments with enough evidence to say that your point is valid. But again, you have to always be ready and flexible to step back for many reasons.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be for team dynamics. Sometimes it can be because your point might not be the valid one. So you always have to have that open mind, that question yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You might be wrong. So knowing that and having empathy and being able to put yourself in that other person's shoes and see how your message is getting sent across helps a lot to negotiate in a better way, so that you don't come across arrogant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Someone has asked, what do you? Oh, I've just lost the question. I've just lost it. I'm scrolling back up again. I had it set. Oh, what do you think about the issue of a potential lack of technical knowledge from a product manager?
So the thing is, in our company at least, we never had that as a problem. The product manager quite knows what he has to do, and the engineers always know what they have to do. It never is in a situation when a product manager have to make technical decisions. However, he does care about the implications of those technical decisions. Is this going to make it more complicated? Is it going to make it, I don't know, longer or less or things like that? So again, comes with the finding the currency. So you have to know what is the currency of your product manager. So your product manager cares about complexity, length of the project, available resources, and deadlines. So you have to argument by highlighting the things that he cares about and align them with the things that you care about in order to be able to negotiate with a non-technical person.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Someone says, how do I get employed at an entry level? Which is a very big and broad and difficult question.
It is a broad. So I think basically you have to start with networking
Yeah.
and internship, and I think your first job is going to be a throwaway job because the salary shouldn't matter just for you to get in and get that experience in. And then once you're in, then you have time to actually look as you gain experience and bank it. You have time to look for more serious role. So I would say not be picky with your first job to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting that first job is like the hardest
Yes.
thing. Once you've got that and some industry experience, it just opens up so many doors. Someone has just asked who this presentation is addressed towards. This is part of a 3-part series that we've done. The first event it's called The Path Ahead. The first event was all about getting your first job. The second event was all about what happens when you're in year 1. This event and these talks are aimed at what happens when you're, year 2 and beyond. So, that deeper level. So this talk is still aimed towards juniors. However, this is part of a bigger series, this event, and this is the third in that installment. The other sessions have been recorded and are uploaded, so you can go back and watch any of those if you want. The next question is, how does a full stack developer progress from junior to mid?
So I'm going to throw a lot of personal opinion here. So I personally think that full stack is too broad. It stops you from being specialized in either of front end or back end. So if you want to be, so many people call themselves backend full stack developers, but they will lack one side of it in a best case scenario. So I would say if you want to be intermediate, mid level, or senior, you have to be specialized. It's all about being specialized in a field. and you have to choose whether it's going to be front end or it's going to be back end.
Yeah, I think for me, I actually agree. I think the word full stack is difficult because I agree. I think it can take so many years to be really good in both of those areas, and I think, and often for me, I always had a and again, this is personal experience. I had a preference. Like, I would do a bit of back end, but my preference was always front. So I would never actually call myself a full stack, even though I could write, Node, for example, which is back end JavaScript. But I would never call myself full stack because I didn't actually think I was that good at it. I could get by, but it was never,
Like,
for me, it was never
we never hire for a full stack. We
okay.
always go for a front end or back end, and that kind of are always, personal opinion again, think that the companies that want to hire full stack developers, I always wonder what the agenda is. Like, does it mean that they don't really want that much of a specialized person, or does it mean that they want to save money and bombard person with both sides of the task at the same time? So there is that aspect as well. So always a good company values specialized skills.
So you said the company you work at elsewhere don't employ full stack. What I guess roles do they have elsewhere?
So we usually hire for senior levels, and sometimes there's opportunity for like juniors that we've had hired 2 people, but it's usually around senior front end or senior back end.
Yeah,
and the senior back end is usually Python with certain frameworks and certain knowledge, and then front end is usually React TypeScript with certain knowledge. So
that I think makes it makes total sense. And then you can have 2 people who are really good in both of those areas, and then they can complement each other